You're following the M3 method. You're following the setups and prospecting, retargeting, retention. And now it's time to make sure you are perfecting the pack system. Now, the pack system is not necessarily a new system. It is something that's kind of in some way, shape, or form been around when it comes to Facebook ads. But the way that we specifically utilize the pack system is extremely, extremely critical. It's important. It allows you to minimize wasted ad spend at the same time that you could still guarantee that the best ads get the majority of the spend. So there's just a couple things that I want to go through within this pack system. Make sure that everyone really understands what's happening here. We're not necessarily talking about graduating here. I just want to highlight on the screen. I'm going to play around a little bit. And I really just want to share what I believe are the most important things that everyone needs to understand. As always, you are a business owner or you're a killer media manager. In either case, every business is slightly unique. Now, don't give yourself the excuse that, hey, my business is unique, so I shouldn't do this completely. But if there's something that pertains specifically to you, or you did something very unique, like you spent a ridiculous amount of money on a certain group of creatives and you need to guarantee that they get spend, or if you want to break something here because it applies to something unique that I'm not accounting for you, sure, break. But this is what works for basically all the businesses that we operate with. Let's drill in. So the way that the pack system operates at first, and really just the most important part of the pack system, every time you have a new round of creatives, that new round of creatives gets launched into a new pack. A pack is literally an ad set. It is a broad, in most cases, ad set with exclusions for retargeting and retention in place, just like we talked about in the prospecting video. The key of the packs, the reason the packs work so well is that they don't interfere with the learnings of all the other ad sets in your campaign. The only thing that the pack does, and the reason we introduced the pack, the only thing the pack interferes with is the budget that you set at the prospecting level. So if we set a $1,000 budget at the prospecting level, and we introduce, let's say we just introduced this new broad pack right here. Previously, all the spend was going into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different directions. And now we have a new element where new spend can go here. Because this new element gets added in, that naturally means that some spend is going to get taken away from here, some spend is going to get taken away from here, and so on, giving the new element a little bit more spend. Now, at first, what a lot of people think is that you should ABO with your prospecting campaign. You absolutely should never ABO with your prospecting campaign. And the reason for that, and the reason why the pack system works specifically well, is because we are creating a hyper competitive environment within our prospecting campaign. What happens here when you run these packs, like I have written out here, is each of these packs compete with one another. This is a war to get spend. Very, very simply put, the best ads rise to the very top and they get overwhelmingly outsized the majority of the spend. It is completely okay if a few ads or a few ad sets or a few packs get 80+% of the spend. Don't let it freak you out. It's very normal and it should happen. Facebook is doubling down on what actually works the best. And the beautiful part about that is, let's say you have an ad that looks like this. This is the chart of the ad and it skyrockets, right? This is the spend it's getting per day. Then you have another ad in the ad account that looks maybe like this, and it plateaus, but it still gets a certain amount of spend every single day. What's going to happen eventually is this ad right here is going to fatigue. And as this ad starts to fatigue, the spend needs to go somewhere. Guess what? This ad here will start to pick up. This process of some ads fatiguing and some ads picking up is very natural and expected. Now, there's certain nuanced cases where as the fatigue starts to occur, as the downfall starts to occur, if return on ad spend is not there, then you could axe the creative altogether. But in most cases, just letting them do their thing and letting this creative have it spike and start to fall is usually way better than axing it. Because, here's the big because. Because usually what will happen is this creative will find a spot, let's say it's right around here, where it plateaus again. And once it plateaus again, and it stays steady, I know it looks like it's up. Once it plateaus again, it has found a consistent place where it can drive steady return on ad spend for you, steady results for you, and it's basically found its home within your ad account. What that then allows is it allows creatives like this new one here to also find a home and plateau. It also allows more new creatives to launch in that might have the same situation and it might actually rise above, right? So the trend lines of all of these creatives can change over time. Now, this does not happen. None of this happens if you cut things down too early. And it definitely doesn't happen if you run ABO. Because if you run ABO, then here's what your account looks like. Not like this. Your account looks like, let's grab a new color. Your account looks like this. Your account looks like every ad gets the same amount of spend. And I know what a lot of people think. They think that they could run ABO like this, right? Every ad gets the same amount of spend. And then if they find an ad that works well, they'll increase the spend and it'll get a new level of spend. And then if they find an ad that doesn't work well, they'll cut it. If they find another ad that works well, they'll get increased spend. If they find another ad that doesn't work well, they'll cut it. That sounds fantastic in reality. The big problem that happens here is that when this ad starts to fatigue, you never have the opportunity to allow it to find its plateau. You want ads to find their plateau. Viral ads are great. Like, we love that. We love the spike. We love when it cranks. But that's just not realistic all the time with every single ad. Every ad has a place within the funnel or within the system of your ad account. So what happens in an ABO system without proper pack setup is you have an ad just like this that they're not plateaus, that you spend. Maybe you increase the spend multiple times, and eventually the ROAS goes from a 3 to a 2 to a 1, or I'm being extreme. And then somewhere along the way, you say, I got to cut this ad. It's not doing well. Or you say, okay, maybe I have to, actually lower the budget back down a step. Maybe it does pretty well at that budget. But the time, this is the big key. We talked about the black swan events. The time that you wasted right here, 5 days, 7 days, 14 days, 2 days, whatever, that you were trying to, as a human being, figure out, should I let this ad continue to run? Two things happen. A, you're wasting money in this period where the algorithm finds that spot and immediately begins lowering spend day by day. And then B, you have to allocate that spend somewhere else. So the algorithm, what it would do is it would find, okay, during this period, we're not doing as well. So boom, this brown ad here that I've identified should start to pick up more spend. Okay. It is balancing the total spend budget that you've given it. Whereas this example here has a negative event, you're losing money, and then you're not increasing anything naturally unless you force more spend into other spots. So you are actually creating your own inefficiencies within your ad account if you run in an ABO system. One big thing about the pack system that comes up a lot is that people launch new packs and then it gets a little too congested over time, and only a couple of the packs actually get appropriate amounts of spend. Now, there's a lot of back and forth that could be hashed out around this. The one thing that you can basically do, just to give you all a tool in the toolkit that I've talked about before, the one thing you can do is you could set advertiser minimum budgets or ad set minimum budgets on new ad sets. The way that I like to do this is so simple. Let's say we just introduced this new pack today, and all of our other packs, we have 15 other packs in the ad account. They're all spending, they're all ripping, they know what they're going to spend every day, and every time I add a new pack, it gets like $5 in spend, and it doesn't ever get any pickup. Now, I could argue that that's probably because the algorithm doesn't like that ad. It's probably not as good as your other ads. You might think, well, it's the same ad. Yeah, but it doesn't have the comments. It doesn't have the social proof. It doesn't have a lot of other elements that are actually very important to the ad itself. Flip that on its head. We spent money on these ads. We, took the time to make a photo shoot. We potentially, spend thousands of dollars on the creator or whatnot. We need this to get some spend. What I like to do is I like to set that advertiser or ad set minimum budget, and I like to do it very simply. I like to do it 1x the CPA. Okay? 1x the cost per acquisition. So you guarantee yourself, if this ad is going to be successful, that it gets one purchase every day. I'm not saying that that's all we want this ad to do. Not at all. But I'm going to add this example to our chart here. We're going to use a black line for this. Now, let's say this is what our account looks like. Sometimes what happens when you launch a completely fresh ad, let me move this up a little bit. I'm going to reduce the size and we're going to move this up just so we could see everything clearly. Okay. So sometimes when we launch a completely brand new ad, what winds up happening is it just goes like this. It just is at literally like $5 a day in spend, and everything else is spending thousands every single day. What setting a minimum does, if it's 1x your CPA, let's say it's $50, all it's going to do is just give it a little bit more. So while instead of starting here, it just starts a little bit higher, and it's just collecting purchases, right? So each of these, like, we'll use green lines. Each of these green lines is a new purchase. And then what Facebook will do is it's much more likely to recognize that because it has purchases and it's under, or in a bad case, worse than your average ROAS or worse than your average CPA. But if it's better, it's going to pick up spend beyond the minimum that you set. So what I like to do is I like to set these minimums for somewhere around a week, maybe 2 weeks at most. After a 2-week period, if it's not getting more spend, remove that minimum and just let it find its home. The key, what happens here, what we really want to happen here, is we want it to run with a minimum. And then instead of staying at that minimum, this is what you would expect. Most people think, well, if I set $50 a day, it's just going to spend 50 a day. No, we're not setting maximums, we're setting minimums. So what usually winds up happening is because you give it a head start, instead of starting down here, this is not where we start. We start down here. We start a little bit higher, and instead of spending flat, it spends 50, 50, 50 for a few days. Oh, it grabs some purchases. Oh, it realizes that it's actually a good ad, maybe. And then it could actually work its way to grow and scale. Sometimes it looks like that line. Sometimes it looks like a spike. But it just gives it a little bit of a head start. Very effective to do when you have a lot of ads in your ad account and you don't want to expand beyond the pack structure. You want to keep your single campaign modular format in place. So those are the most important things that we need to know about the pack system. The other little caveats, questions that come up a lot are, when I move an ad, when I graduate an ad, when I duplicate an ad, do I delete it from the pack? The answer is always no. You never ever pause down an ad that's functioning in a pack. So if this broad pack here has 5 different ads and you took one of these ads and you graduated into your scale campaign, you're not deleting this ad. You're just keeping it going. You have multiple duplicates of the same ad in the ad account. That's pretty much the core principles of the pack system. Generally speaking, we're not pausing down packs. Generally speaking, we aren't really even pausing down ads unless they're really, really bad. Most of the time, we just want to create this very competitive system so that the best ads rise to the top. And the key of why we never run an ABO outside of what I already iterated or talked about is we heavily minimize wasted ad spend, because the CBO will spend very, 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 very little on the poor performing ads, which is also why that minimum budget threshold needs to be really, really, really low. And on top of being really, really low, only available for a short period of time, because we don't want to always run $50 a day on every single new ad set. All of a sudden, next thing you know, you're spending hundreds of dollars on ad sets that are not working. We always want to keep those to a bare minimum.